Hey guys, so today we're going to go over the Constitution, specifically though, the 6 different constitutions that the state of Texas has had. So we start off with the first constitution that Texas was ever under. That was actually through Mexico after they gained their independence in 1827. A lot of it was the same of things that we're used to, except for it mandates that Catholicism is a state religion and it aligns Mexico with the national policy of Spain. It also prohibits slavery, with the state following Mexican national laws. So the Republic of Texas Constitution is the next one we'll come into. That was signed March 17, 1836 during the Texas Revolution. A little bit different, obviously, than the one that we had under Mexico. It sets up our legislative, judicial branches, similar to that used by the United States. 1845, we get into our statehood constitution. So that's the one that we signed when we became the 28th state of the United States. It's modeled after the U.S. Constitution. It affirms habeas corpus and limits imprisonment for debts. It also prohibits the legislature from emancipating enslaved people without the consent of enslavers and compensation. It also recognizes community property rights, allowing spouses to jointly own property acquired during marriage. Now, that one would be short-lived because in 1861, Texas would join the Confederate States of America and have to redraw another constitution under the Confederacy. And in that constitution in 1861, Texas outlines a few things. Okay, first off, they still set up their executive, the legislature, their judicial, but they explicitly and permanently legalized slavery, prohibiting the government from passing laws that would impair the rights to own enslaved people. It emphasizes sovereignty of individual states within the Confederacy, requires support for the Confederate military, and provided mechanisms for amending the Constitution, though changes needed to align with its Confederate principles. So, when we talk about the Civil War a lot, especially in the South, you always hear that this wasn't over slavery, that it had other things involved. Now, there were absolutely other issues, not just slavery. However, slavery played a big part. If it didn't, it wouldn't have been put into every single constitution under the Confederate States of America. That's just how it is. Okay, now Reconstruction is when we had our new one. This is the Reconstruction Constitution. That comes in 1869. And it came with a lot of supervision from U.S. Congress during the Reconstruction period. It makes it align Texas governance with the Reconstruction Act, so it abolishes slavery, establishes civil rights for freemen as a prerequisite for readmission to the Union. That's why it took Texas so long to get back in. They were actually the last state to be readmitted after the Civil War. It also includes the 13th and 14th Amendments to the United States Constitution, as well as the 15th. It abolishes slavery and prohibits involuntary servitude except as punishment for crimes. It also guarantees equality under the law regardless of race, color, or previous conditions of servitude. It establishes rights for African Americans, including property ownership, contracts, and access to the courts. Extends voting rights to all male citizens, regardless of race and or color, and disenfranchised former Confederates as required by the Reconstruction policy. It also requires schools to be free and open to all children, regardless of race, although they were still allowed to segregate, which wouldn't come to an end until Brown v. the Board of Education. Our current Constitution, this is where we're at now. It was signed February 15th, 1876, and it was really a response to people not wanting to be under the Reconstruction-era Constitution. It creates a government that emphasizes decentralization of power of the executive branch and local controls. Okay, reaction to Reconstruction policies emphasizes states' rights, local governance, and frugal government. It also expands our Bill of Rights inside the state. Now, there are some structural issues to our new Constitution. It is over 87,000 words and over 500 amendments. And one of the reasons is because we wanted to decentralize power so badly that we basically made it almost impossible for the state to run without majority input from the citizens of the state. So for any amendment to be put into our Constitution, first Congress has to vote on it, and then we as citizens of the state of Texas have to vote on it for that thing to pass. However, because our government is so restrictive, there's a lot of things that would essentially just be a bill or a law passed that we actually pass amendments for, which is one of the reasons that this keeps growing. Now, articles. There are several articles to the Texas State Constitution. There are actually 17 altogether. So we're not going to go into all of those, but the first one sets up our Bill of Rights, and you can read through the chapter and things if you want to look more into that. Now, we do have 530 amendments that have been adopted. That may actually have just gone up some. Total amendments proposed over 700, and amendments rejected almost 200. Now, Amendments establish our Bill of Rights. They go for stronger property rights, the right to bear arms, and victims' rights, just to name a few. We add homestead protection in 1876. Texas offers one of the strongest homestead protections in the United States. They cannot force you to sell your primary residence, and this has made it actually really difficult for people even to lose their homes for hardship. Income tax prohibition was signed in 1993. That's why Texas doesn't have an income tax. Some people have talked about starting an income tax to get rid of property tax. That has not happened yet. If it does, it will take amendments to the Constitution. They expand gun rights in 2021 with constitutional carry, allowing Texans to carry handguns without a permit. And there's several criticisms of this, one just being the excessive length. Also, that it's super detailed and restrictive. Unlike a broad framework like the U.S. Constitution, the Texas State Constitution includes excessive detail on policy matters, and it limits any flexibility of state governance. Now, we have frequent amendments. This comes around every couple years after the legislative meets. We generally are going to have some type of meetup to discuss adding new amendments to the Constitution. They also have limited home rule for local government. Cities with populations under 5,000 people have a very limited self-governing authority, and it restricts their ability to address local needs or anything like that, really efficient. And again, we have this complicated amendment process, the legislative approval, and then a public vote, and it leaves us with some outdated provisions that just become very changed. Now, proposals for constitutional reform. There's the idea of streamlining and simplifying our Constitution to strengthen the executive branch, reforming the legislative process, improving the judicial system, expanding local governing authority, modernizing voting and elections, tax and budget reform, revising, amending procedures, all kinds of things, trying to make this easier. None of that has passed to date. Now, past attempts at reform are nothing new. This is something that we've tried. In 1974, the Constitutional Convention, a major effort to rewrite the Texas Constitution, fails when lawmakers cannot reach an agreement. In 1875, there's a reform proposal when Texas voters rejected a set of proposed amendments that would have modernized and simplified our Constitution. And then in 1998, 1999, there was another effort as the legislative attempts to overhaul the judiciary and streamline government. It failed to gain traction. Now, there have been recent proposals, various lawmakers, think tanks, who have all come up with different ideas to try and make this a little bit simpler. But as of now, none of that has happened. Now, this is a really quick overlook of the Constitution, just really how many we've had, how we've gotten to this point. Watch that other video, and I will talk to you guys next week.